And just like that, we are live again with a study group. This study group is the SY0-701 Security Plus. Let's see if I can get my headphones turned up so I can hear myself. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's our pre-show. We have about 10 minutes until we get started at the top of the hour. So I am flipping through, making sure cameras are good, checking audio, making sure that we are ready to go. We have all new questions for you in this first hour of the study group. So if you're studying for Security Plus, you are in the right place. Stick around for that. And in the after show, I open up the phone lines an hour from now, and we will take your questions. You can also submit your questions at any time for the second hour. You can see it right there. You can submit your questions, and we will be glad to take those. Hey, chat room. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's doing great. Things here are lovely. Just trying to get the studio where it should be. I've been adjusting cameras and lighting, and I still have audio things to do. There's always something. Of course, I ordered new equipment. It's coming in soon. So hopefully I'll have some new things that I will have up here shortly. Just trying to make things a little more streamlined, a little bit easier for me and a little bit better for you. So we're working on those. We're trying to get through all of those. Those of you in the chat room who are concerned about the stream having some type of issue or lag or any of those things, I will remind you that you are getting the stream directly from YouTube. You are not getting it from me. So you want to check to see your connection to YouTube, and you may want to click the cog wheel at the bottom of your video screen and maybe change the resolution to something that is not lagging for you. Maybe a 720p or a 480 or one of those might work better for you. So you can certainly give that a shot. My stream, you can see the cache number that we have here. 3% is what we want. If that number starts going up, I'm in trouble, which does occasionally happen. But right now we're in good shape. Right now I have a great upstream amount of bandwidth. I have huge numbers of bandwidth going upstream, which is what I'm sending to you. So we're good from a bandwidth perspective. It's always funny when we work through this and there's always a delay, some type of outage, maybe a little bit of additional congestion. That can sometimes happen, but we're right now we're in pretty good shape. Right now, we've got a good connection going on, which is what I like to see. I usually will have this up and running quite a bit of time before we go live, just to make sure in doing this. So so far so good. So far so good. So if you're running into issues, if you see the stream is lagging or you're not happy with it, just hit the cog wheel. Try changing that resolution a bit, and I think that will solve all of your problems. In the chat room, some folks are asking a question about this live stream. This is an SY0-701 with the 7, lucky 701. If you are studying for the 601, some of this content that we do today will apply to you, but not all of it. This has all been written with the 701 in mind. Now, the good part is that we have 3 years of 601 study groups that you can go through. Maybe you've already gone through them, which first, thank you so much. Secondly, that will give you a ton of information. And if you've already gone through them, this isn't going to hurt to have some of this here. In fact, I haven't looked through the questions to see, are they 701, are they 601, but maybe we'll try to do some of that as we go. Just so you can tell, oh, this is a 601 question. This is a 701 question. You'll be able to tell everything in here is a 701 question. So I guess the real question is, does it also apply to 601? And I'll try to give you some insight into that as we go along. So everybody get comfortable. We've got a few minutes before we get started. It's only 6 minutes, 5.5 minutes till the top of the hour. We'll get things going. We've got a lot. I guess I should turn on the map, right? We'll do that, like right here. So you can put in where you happen to be in this virtual map. You can stick your virtual pin into the map where you happen to be. And we'll see how many people show up in the middle of the Atlantic again. There were a number of those on the last stream. I don't know how they're streaming it, but somehow they're able to make it happen. So they're floating along just in the middle of nowhere. doing that, I guess. I'm assuming, if that's where they really are. So folks are starting to plug in their location right now, which is kind of fun. It's kind of fun to see where everybody is checking in from, whether it's where you're really checking in from or not. This is clearly not scientific. So we do not validate your location. We're not really, yeah, maybe it was the Navy. Maybe it was someone who they're on a ship, they're on a cargo container ship, and they're going, oh, I guess it would be good if I put up the link there so you could plug in your connection onto the map. That's the link for answering any of the questions today, professormesser.com/QA. Thank you for asking, because obviously I didn't mention it. So this is where we go. We're trying to figure it out, aren't we? We're trying to get things going. There's so much that we've got going on right now. Oh, if you only knew. There's just a lot of it's well-defined work. It's not chaos, but it's just busy. It's just super busy to get that happening. So there you go. If you want to get there, professormesser.com/QA. That's the link. I'm not going to put that in the chat. You'll be able to put that in. You'll be able to make it happen. Or you could find there is maybe I'll put the QR code up. There you go. You can do that. To do that as well. Either way will get you there. So you'll have a couple of ways to make that happen. And I'm assuming it will work on your screen. I guess we could make it full screen here. We could do that. There you go. Is it going to work with everything on top of it? Probably not. But at least that's the idea, is we have something to go with there. Well, thanks everyone for checking in. We got a few minutes before we get started. 3 minutes to get things running, and we'll make that happen. Let's see how people are doing with their check-ins. Nobody in the middle of the Atlantic this time. Some folks in the EU, folks checking in from Middle East. We got South Africa checking in. My friends in Canada are here, friends and family probably. Now, are you really way up there in Canada? I need to know. It put just 2 in Canada there, but I suspect that you're probably somewhere closer on the southern edge there. I'm expecting, although maybe not. Maybe you are way up there. Who knows? So folks checking in, thanks for being here. We want to get comfortable. All new questions today. Again, we will make sure that you're able to get there. Folks are checking in from all over the place: California, Bulgaria, Quebec, Maryland, my Maryland, Nigeria is here. Ontario is here, Toronto. A lot of Canadians. Thank you for being here. Say hey to the family. I'll have to check in with them. Got all kinds of stuff going on. Switzerland is here, Senegal, Orlando, Florida, Tampa, Florida. Floridians finally checking in. Thanks for being here. My fellow Floridians, thanks for being here. Ghana is here, Colorado, South Africa, Berlin, Qatar, Texas, or is it Qatar? Or is it, I've heard like 4 different. Now that it's in the news, we just keep giving it a different name every time we say it, it seems. I always listen to the news people who try to give it more of a native flair and not a popular one. So who knows? I'll go with the AP style guide on that one. Whatever they say, that's what I'll go with. Oh, we got a minute to go. 1 minute. I guess I should perhaps get a few things in order on this side. That would be good. If we were able to get graphics up and running, laptop is up and running. Yep, that all looks good. I have not checked to see if we can make this happen. We can figure it out. And now we will see what else we could do here. All new questions. We'll get started in just a moment. Need to adjust myself and not sure. I made changes to my camera, so we're going to see if I'm happy with this camera now that we're going to go all the way through this live stream. And I'm either going to be very happy with it or not at all. It's always 1 or 2 or things like that whenever we go through this. Let's make sure that we're able to get our keynote up and running. Green light, please. Got it. Green lights. Very nice. So I think with that, we just wait for this to turn into a 12 over here. Can you even see the clock? You can't. It's behind my mic stand, but I'm watching the clock. It does not have a second line, but there you go. Now we're in good shape. It's top of the hour. We've got everything ready to go. Let's confirm recordings are going. We're in good shape. Let's do a live stream, everybody. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 2024 Professor Messer SY0-701 Security Plus Study Group. This is our monthly study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and you online are able to answer them live and in real time thanks to the magic of the internet. Well, we are so glad that you're able here to join us. Even if you are not watching this live, if you're watching this on a replay, you can still follow along and answer questions as we go. In fact, I have a question waiting for you. The way that you can answer this question and participate with us is by visiting the URL that is on your screen. That is professormesser.com/QA. That is the URL that will be our only link that you will need to answer any of the questions. You can also submit questions using that URL, because in the second hour, we're doing an after show and you'll be able to ask questions of me. We kind of turn this whole thing around a little bit to make that happen. So what I want to do, though, is give you a question and try this out with that URL, professormesser.com/QA. So pop open a new browser window, type in professormesser.com/QA, or use the link that's on the live link, and there will be a question waiting for you. And this question asks, a company is assigning administrator rights to IT technicians on a temporary basis. Which of the following would describe this system? Is that just-in-time permissions, password vaulting, salting, hashing, or passwordless access? Now, the rules that we have for the live stream is no answers in the chat room, please. No hints in the chat room, please. We will come back to this question, though, in just a bit and see how well you know some of this content. Well, we've got a lot going on here at Messer Studios. There's plenty that we are working through. We've got a lot of things to go through, but if you're ever trying to find the things that we are doing on our website, things happening during the week, things that we are posting and new content, it's all available if you visit professormesser.com/YouTube. And while you're there, it would be great if you were to subscribe to our channel. We would appreciate that as well. I also have a weekly Security Plus pop quiz question. You can find that on our website, certainly. You can also find it on the service formerly known as Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter. I don't know what to tell you. And then we have an Instagram link there as well. We also post it on LinkedIn. If you're ever trying to find us on any of these sites, you can simply type in professormesser.com/ the name of that site. So professormesser.com/Twitter, professormesser.com/Instagram, professormesser.com/LinkedIn. You get the idea. That's how it works. And you can find us on your favorite social media site. Today, we're going to talk about Security Plus. But right now, there are two different Security Plus exams that you could take. Either one of them works just as well as the other. So the ultimate goal, whether you take the SY0-601 or the SY0-701, they both earn the same Security Plus certification. So that's one of those where it doesn't matter which one you take, just pick one and go with it. Now, for those of you that have been studying for a while, you're probably studying the SY0-601. This was an exam version that was released on November the 12th of 2020. And so it will indeed be retired soon. We're coming up on July 31st of this year as the retirement date. Now, what that means is that this exam will go away. Now, if you pass your exam before the retirement date, you're still certified for 3 years. So this isn't a date of your certification. This is a date when this particular set of questions goes away. So that's an important thing to consider, especially if you've been studying the 601 exam objectives. The Security Plus exam itself is a 90-minute exam, one single exam. You could get up to 90 questions. You could get fewer than 90 questions on your exam. And on this passing scale that is between 100 and 900, you need to score a 750. For those of you who have not taken a CompTIA exam before, you may not realize that there are certainly a lot of multiple choice questions on this exam, but there are also performance-based questions on this exam. So stick around in this study group. In just a moment, we will talk about what those performance-based questions happen to be. Now, because that exam is retiring, we have a new version of the Security Plus exam. This newer version is the SY0-701. And right now, you can choose to take either the 601 or the 701 exam. The exam itself, this 701 version, was released on November the 7th, the one we just had. So this is a relatively new exam. It's only been around about 3 months or so. The estimated retirement for this exam is May of 2027. So you have plenty of time to think about when this exam might be retired. If you're studying for the 701, you don't have to worry about a retirement date anytime soon. We'll certainly look at it that way. This is, of course, also a single exam. Everything is exactly the same from a grading perspective as the 601 exam, and it is the same format with multiple choice questions and performance-based questions. The only thing that's really different are the content in the exam objectives. So the objectives are very, very different between these two exams. You do not want to study for the 601 exam and take the 701 or vice versa. Make sure that all of your exam materials that you are studying from match the version of the exam that you're taking. If you study for the 601 and you walk into the 701, you're going to have a very bad day. If you study for the 701 and you walk into the 601 exam, you will also have a very bad day. So make sure both of those things are completely synchronized up. If you are studying from 601 books, you need to take the 601 exam. If you're watching my 701 videos, you need to take the 701 exam. Just make sure they match and you'll be fine. That's an important part of all of this. If you are starting your studies right now, as we sit here approaching the end of March, we're getting into April now, you really may want to consider taking the 701 because it's not going to retire in July. And you might need a number of months to get through all of that content. So I will recommend that if you've been studying for the 601, keep studying for the 601. You have until the end of July to pass that exam. But if you're just getting started today, if I was just getting started today with my studies, I would probably go with the 701 as well. I almost certainly would go with the 701, and I would recommend that you do that as well. Also let you know that if you're studying the 601 or the 701, all of our videos are available for you to watch for free on our website. The entire course is there. Nothing is behind a paywall. We do also have a downloadable version of these videos along with course notes, practice exams, and other study materials that might help you. It's part of our Success Bundle. You can find out more about our 701 or 601 Success Bundle on our website at professormesser.com/701SB, or simply use the menus at the top of the site. Also let you know that this podcast will be available for replay on YouTube immediately after we are done here. I also create an audio-only podcast version. So if you're in your car, you're working out, or you're somewhere you can't watch a screen, this is a version that will automatically be downloaded into your favorite podcast listening program. It's also available on your favorite streaming service. So if you're on Spotify, for instance, just search for Professor Messer and you'll find us without a problem. If you'd like to join this or have this as part of your podcast listening program, you can find the link at professormesser.com/podcast. Also let you know that we have this study group available as a video replay immediately afterwards. But you'll notice about a day later, suddenly, as if by magic, you will start to see timestamps will appear in the YouTube video description, allowing you to jump immediately to sections of this. This is a great chapter feature that's built into YouTube. And it doesn't happen automatically. It happens because my marketing manager, Lori, who's watching the replay, hi, Lori, she's probably going through this at 2x speed and making sure that we have all of these timestamps included so that you can find this information as quickly as possible. And I think everyone in the chat room, along with me, thank you, Lori, for doing this. It does help a great deal, and you can go back years and find this content now. So it's great to have that there. Also let you know that we will be on Discord when we're not doing these live streams. So it's a great place to find other people who are studying for their certification exams, other people who are simply technologists hanging out in our Discord, which is always great to get their perspective. And of course, I'm usually in there too. You can find us on the Discord by visiting professormesser.com/Discord. Didn't see that one coming, right? It's about the same format as anything else that's right there. professormesser.com/Discord. It's a fantastic community of people that are studying and I'm certain that you'll be able to get something out of it, maybe get a few extra points on your exam just by visiting and talking with some folks in that Discord. I will also let you know that eventually you will need to take the exam. You can, of course, pay full price for the exam when you visit the CompTIA website, but why would you do that when I have discounted vouchers already available if you happen to live in the U.S. or Canada or in a U.S. territory? Those are available at professormesser.com/vouchers, and if you buy them from my site, you also get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. This is a book of tips and tricks that I put together. I don't want to call it life hacks, more like exam hacks. So tips and tricks that I've accumulated through the years, not only for my study process, but during the exam itself. That's true. You can do things during the exam that could possibly get you some additional points at the end of the exam. Those are documented in my Exam Hacks ebook. That's included free if you purchase your discounted voucher on my site at professormesser.com/vouchers. So let's go back to this question we asked earlier. This question asks, a company is assigning administrator rights to IT technicians on a temporary basis. Which of the following would describe this system? Would it be just-in-time permissions, password vaulting, salting, hashing, or passwordless access? And if we have a look at what you chose as the answer, no difference here. Everybody knows the answer to this one, it seems. 90% of you know the answer to this one, which is just-in-time permissions. This is what we use to determine how you may get permissions, but not give you those permissions for the entirety of what you are doing. For example, if you're working in an environment where almost everyone has an administrator rights and access, well, that's probably not the best security. Instead, why don't we give you that access to perform a particular function, but as soon as that function is done, we take that access away. That's certainly a much more secure method of providing someone with additional rights and permissions, and we do it by using a technology or series of technologies that implement just-in-time permissions. That is the right answer. That's what we were looking for. So hopefully that's given you some perspective on things that you might want to consider when looking at security from this perspective. Now, it would not be password vaulting. Password vaulting is where we put your password in a vault itself. So we can pull that. You probably even use this if you're using LastPass or you're using 1Password or one of these other password protections, password wallets on your system. You are doing password vaulting, but that does not create a access on a temporary basis. It simply stores your passwords securely. Salting and hashing are technologies commonly used with protecting and saving passwords. It's not something that assigns passwords on a temporary basis. And passwordless access is not what we're discussing here either. Passwordless access allows you into a system without having to type a password, but it's not insinuating that this is a temporary password. In fact, most passwordless access is access that you always have. So in this case, 90% of you are absolutely right. This is the answer we were looking for, just-in-time permissions. That is the one that can give you that access you need, but only for a limited amount of time. And if you answered passwordless, you did a great job with that one. Well, let's shift gears now. I mentioned earlier that when you take one of these exams, one of the things that you get at the very beginning is a set of questions that are not multiple choice. In fact, many of these questions are anything but multiple choice. It might be fill in the blank. It might be matching. It might be a drag and drop question. You may be put at a command prompt and asked to perform a function, although that tends to be more of a 601 scenario. As many of you are studying for the 701, there are no command lines on the 701. So it's unlikely that's the type of question you might get on the 701 exam, but there's other questions they may ask. And I have for you today a question that is a performance-based question. This is a 701 question, although I will tell you a number of the topics on here also apply to the 601. Let's go through our performance-based question of the month. It is a matching question, and I want you to match the technology. The technologies that we have here are to verify the status of a web server certificate. Credit card numbers are replaced with temporary values. We want to add randomization to a hash, and we also want to create a document with invalid authentication information. Now, I want to match the topics, the technologies on the right side with those specific explanations. And for those of you listening on the podcast, those technologies are false negative, honey file, federation, OCSP, salting, tokenization, and blockchain. Those are the 7 different technologies to match to these 4 different descriptions. And if you're doing the math here, there will be 3 of these left over at the end that we don't use. So this is not that you might get 1 of these right, you might get 2 of these right, but you may get all of them right. But with 7 different options to choose from, this is something we commonly see on the exam. You could get only 1 of these correct. Now, having this inability to fill in every single blank that's here makes it a little more difficult. So I gave you 7 possible answers, but there are only 4 questions. 3 of these are going to be left over at the end. So if you would like to answer this, again, you go to that same URL, pop open a new browser window, follow the link at the bottom of your screen, professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. See if you know what these are. For those of you listening in again, let's go through these 4 different descriptions again. They are: verify the status of a web server certificate. Credit card numbers are replaced with temporary values. Add randomization to a hash. And create a document with invalid authentication information. And it would be a choice of a false negative, honey file, federation, OCSP, salting, tokenization, or blockchain. This is where you go to answer these questions, professormesser.com/QA. Lock in what you think the answer is. Now, if you already think they're in the right order, you simply put 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D. It's not a lot of typing involved here. You don't have to type the whole thing out. You just need to put those in. As always, of course, no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We want to address these questions by inputting the answers on the link that is on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Lock in those answers. A lot of people getting into this one. This might be a good one for many of you to kind of figure out where these technologies might fit. And understanding these very broad and very different technologies on Security Plus is an important part of the exam. I didn't use a lot of abbreviations here. We obviously use a lot of acronyms in technology, but not a lot of them in this particular question. So this is one where you might be in pretty good shape when it comes to understanding what the different answers might be. You lock those answers in by going to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We're going to see how well you do with this one. I know I really do need to have a question that really is 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D. But then I would kind of give it away during the description, wouldn't I? That wouldn't be good for anyone. Nobody wants that one. But maybe they do. Maybe we need a special April 1st live stream. Now, if I ever do an April 1st live stream, those of you on this stream will know what's really going on. So you'll already know the answers before we even get to them. And then I'd probably have every other answer of every other question the same. Like they're all answer A or something. It's A again. Oh, look, another one's A. We'd have to figure that one out as we go. I don't know that anybody really wants that, though. It always runs into a challenge like, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? And it's a fine question to ask. So that is what we should do. Yeah, it should be someone else. I could talk offhand and just have some person moving their mouth. We'll do that. See how it goes. Let's see how you did with this question. It was match the technology. We want to verify the status of a web server certificate. We have credit card numbers are replaced with temporary values. We want to add randomization to a hash, or we want to create a document with invalid authentication information. And we have a number of these to pull from. We have false negative, honey file, federation, OCSP, salting, tokenization, and blockchain. So let's fill this in, should we? Let's start with the very first one that is on our list, which is verify the status of a web server certificate. And if you wanted to plug in what you feel a status check might be, you want to use a very well-known protocol called OCSP. If you're ever doing anything relating to technology when it comes to certificates, you want to be very familiar with how you verify that a certificate is really valid. And the online certificate status protocol is the one that you would use to be able to properly understand, is the certificate that I'm looking at valid or is it not valid? And there are a number of different ways to determine that. OCSP is certainly one that does provide you with that functionality. And in the list of things that we had, it was the only one that really made any sense. That is the right answer for number 1, is the OCSP. Second on our list is credit card numbers are replaced with temporary values. This is something that is done whenever you use your phone to pay for something, you use your watch to pay for something as you're checking out at a store. It's not really sending your credit card number across the airwaves. It's really sending a different number, a token that has been created with this. We refer to that as tokenization. And tokenization is a very common way to protect your credit card number because you're not using your credit card number. You're using a one-time use token. So if somebody does hack into a system, they're able to capture that token that's being sent to be able to pay for your goods, and then they try to use that token again, they will not be able to use it because the token is only good one time and you've already used it. Once you use that token, it goes away. And next time you pay for something at the store, it uses a different token. So there are a number of tokens that are in your phone or in your watch just waiting to be used. And it's only going to use them that one time. And once it uses the one time, it just throws them away. It's a very good way to provide that functionality. It is not encryption. It is simply replacing one value with another value. Now, obviously, it's probably also encrypting this data as it's sending across the network, but we didn't talk about encryption. We just talked about that credit card numbers are replaced with temporary values. That is certainly not encryption. That is tokenization. Next on our list is add randomization to a hash. This is something that you should be doing if you are storing hash values on a system, especially if those hash values are something like a password. We don't want to make it very easy for people to reverse engineer that. So we want to add a little bit of salt. The salting of a hash means that everyone could be using the same password, but when you store those hashes on a drive, the salt randomizes each one of those. And so all of these passwords from the perspective of the attacker will look very different than each other, even if the passwords happen to be all exactly the same. It does add a little bit more complexity. It doesn't slow someone down completely. It doesn't absolutely prevent somebody from brute forcing a password, but it does make it a little more difficult. And from a best practices perspective, if you are storing password hashes, you should also be salting those hashes before you store them. Last on our list, number 4, is create a document with invalid authentication information. So creating a document with invalid authentication information seems odd. Why are you putting invalid information into a document? That's because we would like to attract the attackers. We would like to have this file set up so that it looks like something an attacker might be able to use to gain access to a system. We're effectively trying to fool the attacker, and we do that by using a honey file. Honey files are sweet, they attract the bears, and they have inside of them information that you would be able to check and monitor and look for on the internet, but because it is invalid authentication information, it's effectively worthless to anyone who gets their hands on it. It's really a way that you can use methods to be able to track if someone may have gotten their hands on this file, which obviously is a much bigger problem. So that is a very good use of the honey file, is to put information in there that an attacker may be able to use. That's certainly a new topic for the 701. If you're studying for the 601, OCSP, tokenization, salting are certainly part of that, but honey file I don't believe is on the 601 if I think back to the days. We also have these other 3 topics we did not use. A false negative is when we have a negative response, maybe something, a virus is being sent into our network and our virus scanner does not detect it. That is a false negative. It gave us a negative value, but it was not a valid negative value. It was a false negative. A federation is one that describes the process of authenticating on a third-party network using credentials from somewhere else. So if you've ever logged into a website using your Google login, or you've ever logged into a website using your Microsoft login, even though the sites you're going to are not a Google site, not a Microsoft site, you're using federation. And blockchain It may not even be worth describing blockchain, since everybody tends to be familiar with cryptocurrency, whether you love it or hate it or don't care. That is certainly a technology that applies to other things other than cryptocurrency. Blockchain allows us to do a great deal of tracking and monitoring and public ledgering, if you will, by using blockchain technologies, which is a nice combination of a nice implementation of technologies in the encryption line. This is something we use cryptography for constantly. It's obviously an important part of what we do today, but none of the technologies we listed here did apply to blockchain. We have those four at the top. Verifying the status of a web server certificate is OCSP. Credit card numbers replaced with temporary values are tokenization. Adding randomization to a hash is salting. And creating a document with invalid authentication information is a honey file. Hopefully you did well with those. That was our performance-based question of the month. We obviously have a new performance-based question every month. And if you want to get a few more tests and trials for your studies, you may want to go back to some of our replays and have a look at some of those as well. Well, now we can kind of jump ahead a little bit. Let's move away from performance-based questions and let's do a traditional multiple choice-based question. So here is the next question on our list. It asks, a user is asymmetrically encrypting an outgoing email message. Which of the following is used to encrypt this information? Is it encrypting it with, let me pull up the side so we can see it. There we go. Is it the sender's public key, a recipient's private key, the sender's private key, the recipient's public key and sender's private key, or the recipient's public key? So this is one we really do have to parse out. I'm not trying to fool you, but these are very common questions, the style that you might get on your actual exam. The question again asks, a user is asymmetrically encrypting an outgoing email message. Which of the following is used to encrypt this information? Is it the sender's public key, the recipient's private key, the sender's private key, the recipient's public key and the sender's private key, or the recipient's public key? It's one of those. This is a good question for both the 601 and 701. So if your folks are in the chat room that are studying for their 601, this is a good question for you. Along with the folks that obviously all the questions are for the 701 that we are doing today, but this one certainly applies also to the 601. There were some topics on that previous one that did not, but a lot of those still did. So this is one we really do have to parse through what we think the answer is. Now, if you've never worked at all with asymmetric encryption, I would highly recommend you do some of that. Install PGP on your system, create a key for yourself, and then send me a message that's encrypted with PGP. Just send it to, you can paste it into our contact page or just send it james@professormesser.com and I will have a look at it. You obviously need to put your key. I won't tell you which key. There needs to be a way that I can get the proper key to be able to decrypt it. Almost gave away the question. See what you did? Don't do that. I will instead keep my mouth very quiet and we will see if you know the answer to this one. A lot of you put in your answer, so I feel like we might know this one pretty well. The question again asks, a user is asymmetrically encrypting an outgoing email message. Which of the following is used to encrypt this information? Is it the sender's public key, the recipient's private key, the sender's private key, the recipient's public key and the sender's private key, or just the recipient's public key? Let's see what you answered first, and then we'll figure out what the actual answer is. We're all over the place. 36% of you say you would use the sender's private key. We also have 29% that say we would use the recipient's public key and the sender's private key to encrypt this information. We've got 13% that say the sender's public key, and then 17% say the recipient's public key. And then we have finally 3% of you say the recipient's private key. So now we've got this scenario. We want to send someone a private message. We're using asymmetric encryption, and we want to know what we are going to do to encrypt this data. What do we use to make sure that who we're sending this message to is able to read it, but it's still protecting all of the data that's behind the scenes as it's being sent across the network. So let's look at a scenario where we have encryption. Let's say that we are Bob and we are sending a message to Alice. And on Bob's machine, we're creating a message and we're typing in, "Hello, Alice." That's the message that we're sending to Alice. Doesn't seem like it's really necessary to encrypt that, but Bob is a very private person and he wants to be sure he encrypts this message. To be able to encrypt it, we need something that everyone would have access to, but the decryption can only be done by the recipient. Well, something that everyone would have access to would be something like a public key. Now, which public key would we use? We would use the public key of the person receiving this message. And that's because once we encrypt it with Alice's public key, the only way you would be able to decrypt this is with the other part of Alice's key. And that's the important part, because Alice has a private key. She's the only one that has her private key. Obviously, it's a private key. Nobody else gets access to that key but Alice. And when we encrypt with her public key, which everyone has, it's a public key. The name implies that everybody has access to it. Once we encrypt with this, no one is able to see what's inside of it, even the people that also have the public key. It seems odd that you would be able to encrypt with a public key, and if you had that key, you wouldn't be able to decrypt it, but that's exactly the magic of asymmetric encryption. That's why it is asymmetric, because we use a different key to encrypt than decrypt. We use something different on both sides. The inclusion, when we put those together, of both the plain text and the public key, we come up with what we call the ciphertext. This is the information that no one would be able to read. We can send this out to the internet. We can even post it publicly. No one will be able to read this except for Alice, because Alice is the only person who has her private key. If somebody else had Alice's private key, we would be in trouble. This whole process would fall apart completely. In fact, Alice would probably revoke that key and get a new pair because somebody else had access to her private key. But we're assuming here that in this particular case, we've done a very good job of making sure that Alice is the only person who has access to this. So that is where we would go with this one. The scenario here is that Alice would take that ciphertext, plug her private key into the ciphertext, and when you combine those two, you end up with the plain text again, what we started with, "Hello, Alice." So if you are a user who is asymmetrically encrypting an outgoing email message, just like Bob did, we would need to use the recipient's public key. That is the key that is listed right here. Alice's public key. Alice is the recipient. We would need the recipient's public key. And if we look at our list, 17% of us said the recipient's public key. So that is the answer. Interestingly enough, it is kind of right in the middle of what everyone chose. It would not be a sender's private key. If you encrypted with a private key, anyone who had the public key would be able to decrypt it. Doesn't sound like that's what we want. Everybody has the public key. If you encrypt something with your private key, everybody would be able to see and read whatever and decrypt everything that was in there. So you never want to do that. Obviously, the sender's private key has the same problem. You're never encrypting with a private key if you're trying to keep information safe and make it so that no one can gain access to that encrypted data. We would not use a sender's public key. We would have to have the sender, in this case would be Bob. You would have to have Bob's private key to be able to decrypt it. If we sent that to Alice, Alice wouldn't be able to decrypt it. She doesn't have Bob's private key. Nobody has Bob's private key except for Bob. And then we've got, lastly, a public and private key combined, using both of those to encrypt the information. That's not what we're doing either. We don't use both of those to encrypt. We only use one of them to encrypt. In fact, if we did a recipient's public key, which is obviously what we would choose, and then we also encrypted with the sender's private key, anyone who had the sender's public key might be able to gain access to this, depending on the type of asymmetric encryption that you are using. In this case, the only answer that makes any sense, the one that we would use to encrypt this information, is the recipient's public key. If you chose that option, 17% of you got that one absolutely correct. This is one where understanding the process of encrypting and decrypting with asymmetric can be a little bit difficult to follow because there are differences when you're encrypting versus when you are digitally signing. So make sure you know the two differences between those and when the different keys are used for those different scenarios. They are a little bit different when you're working through them. So make sure you're familiar with those. This might be a good one to work on and be a little bit more familiar with as we step through whether it's 601 studies or 701 studies. It applies to both of those. Well, we're not done. We can jump back to a different question. We can see how we do with the next one on our list. So let's see if we're able to do a little bit better with this one. This question asks, which of the following external threat actors commonly has limited resources and relatively low attack sophistication? Would this be unskilled, shadow IT, organized crime, nation state, or hacktivist? These are all real things. I'm not making these up. Which of the following external threat actors commonly has limited resources and relatively low attack sophistication? Would this be unskilled, shadow IT, organized crime, nation state, or hacktivist? If you think you know the answer, please know answers in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA. A lot of folks in the chat room talking about asymmetric encryption. That question was only about encrypting and decrypting data. That question wasn't talking about digital signatures. It wasn't talking about non-repudiation. It wasn't talking about anything except what we were dealing with from an encryption perspective. So make sure you're familiar with those. This is where we want to be. Now, this question, some of the topics in this question or some of the answers in this question are not something from the 601. So this is really a 701 question, but some of it is a little bit 601-ish. So if you're studying for the 601, you'll probably get something out of this question too, if you think you know what the answer is. This question again asks, which of the following external threat actors commonly has limited resources and relatively low attack sophistication? Is it unskilled, shadow IT, organized crime, nation state, or hacktivist? Number of you have locked in your question already with this one. So let's see how you did. We're going to stop the poll and see what you answered. The questions here came in 75% of you say the answer is unskilled, but 18% of you say the answer is hacktivist. We have 5% of you that say shadow IT, and then less than 1% say organized crime, and 0% say nation state. Well, for those of you that are on the 601 exam, you know that we used a different term on that exam. We used script kiddie as that, although that name itself is not really very descriptive of what that particular threat actor happens to be. So instead, we call it something that's a little more accurate, which would be an unskilled attacker. That's what we are referring to here. It's someone who simply is running a script they downloaded off the internet, hoping that it would gain access to the system. They don't know how it works. They don't know if it works. They don't know anything other than throwing it out and seeing if it happens to do what they want. They have very limited sophistication from that perspective. And what they're really trying to do is create problems, delete data. Sometimes they aren't even sure what they're trying to do. They're just after seeing what they can do. They don't really have a purpose in some cases. Other times they're just trying to create problems and create issues. So that's another example of where that comes from. And these could be someone who's inside of your network. They could be outside of your network, but it's effectively someone who's just enough to be dangerous and really nothing more beyond that. An unskilled attacker is the answer that we were looking for here. And of course, 75% of you chose that answer. A hacktivist, in this particular case, the hacktivist that you would use, saying it has limited resources and relatively low attack sophistication, is not necessarily the case. Hacktivists very often have a goal. They have a purpose, and they, in many cases, have the skills required to be able to fill out and have that particular effort be successful. So they are not coming into this with a non-sophisticated perspective. They're usually relatively sophisticated, because they have taken the skills that they've acquired in sort of the black hat side of things and being able to attack a network, and they've changed that around to force their way into systems where they are not really wanted. So whenever we get into the idea of a hacktivist, they might have limited resources, but they probably don't have a low attack sophistication. Certainly on this list, the one that fits both of those by far is indeed the unskilled attacker. Shadow IT is someone who has a lot of resources because they're on your IT or they're in your company acting as their own IT, and they have, in many cases, they're able to build out their own infrastructure. They probably have a pretty good sophistication to what they're doing. So I wouldn't say that that would be the right answer. And only 5% of you or so chose that answer. Organized crime has plenty of resources and is very sophisticated. It's effectively a business. And so would not choose organized crime for that one either. And nation state probably has more resources than anybody to be able to do this. And they can afford to hire anyone they'd like with the sophistication that they need to be able to perform the attacks they want to perform. In this case, the answer that makes any sense is the one at the top, the unskilled attacker, someone who can really create problems for a network, especially because they really have no idea what they're doing when they start looking at the network and trying to figure out how to attack it and get into those systems. Well, obviously, if you look at the 701 exam, there's a lot of information to pull from. I have 601 course notes. I have 701 course notes. These are available both on my website. In fact, I want to show you the 701 course notes. As I mentioned, both of these exams are currently available, and you want to be sure that you're getting the course notes that are appropriate for the exam that you're planning to take. For example, if you're planning to take the 701 exam, make sure you get the set of course notes for the SY0-701. It's right there on the front. And of course, on my website, it's very clearly marked, so you know exactly which one you want to choose. This is a summary of all of the information that are in all of my videos. So you get to see in this list a lot of great detail. You can see exactly all of the text, all of the important charts, all of the graphics that I create. There's our digital signature and authentication information. We got plenty in here about zero trust. All of these are in here. There's our asymmetric encryption. You just saw that. So it's in the course notes. It's all in there. Well, these course notes are extensive. Let's see, how many pages is the 701? Goes up to 96 pages. There's a lot in this single document. And there are, of course, this digital version that you're looking at here. We also have, here we go. I've got both. Here we are. The 701 course notes and the 601 course notes, both of them available in a physical edition as well. Obviously, the physical edition has exactly the same information as the digital edition, just in a different format. And if you purchase the physical edition, you get to download the digital edition for free immediately. So that's a little nice to be able to do that. Hopefully, that is something that if you're studying for your exam, you're going through every video. Obviously, my 601 course, 177 videos, only slightly smaller for the 701. There's a lot of videos to watch. This is a way to quickly find the information you need and have it all in one place. And of course, you can put it on all of your mobile devices. So wherever you happen to be, you can study and prepare for your Security Plus exam. If you'd like more information on that, simply go to my website and use the pull-down menus at the top of the site to choose the 601 or the 701 course notes. A great way to support what we do here. And we thank you so much for your ongoing support for those of you that have already purchased those course notes. They've been mentioned in the chat room. Thank you so much for that. Let's do some more questions. I've got more here. Next on our list is this question that asks, an administrator is configuring the security rules in a firewall. Which of the following SDN plane would be most associated with this task? Would this be data, active, control, infrastructure, or management? I have a few to choose from here. This is definitely a 701 question for those of you following along. This question again asks, an administrator is configuring the security rules in a firewall. Which of the following SDN planes which of the following SDN plane would be most associated with this task? Is it data, active, control, infrastructure, or management. If you think you know the answer, follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Those of you in the chat room wondering, do you have course notes for the 701? Yep, the ones you saw on the screen and the ones I was holding in my hand are for the 701. So yes, absolutely. Wouldn't help very much to have this just the 601. 701 come in handy. Make sure you get the ones, of course, that are appropriate for the exam that you are planning to take. Both are still valid. Both are still good. So you want to be sure to get the right ones so that it matches up with the questions you're going to get on the exam. As far as this question is concerned, make sure you lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Want to go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See if you know what this one happens to be. This is a pretty good question. We do have to know about the SDN. I don't want to give too much away. So we're just going to see if you lock in what you think the right answer is for this one. Let's see how you did with this. The question again asks, an administrator is configuring the security rules in a firewall. Which of the following SDN planes would be most associated with this task? It's really only one plane I'm looking for. Is it the data plane, the active plane, the control plane, the infrastructure plane, or the management plane? So which one would it be? Let's see what you chose in here. We'll stop the poll, and you can see that we have 54% that say that's the control plane, 19% say it's the management plane, we have 9% that say it's the data plane. Did I do 10% of you say the infrastructure plane, and 5% say the active plane? Well, let's talk about SDN. This software-defined networking is what SDN stands for. And what it is it's a concept that we have taken and applied into our technologies that we're implementing both in the cloud and indeed in physical real life as well. So it's a way to describe where things are happening inside of these devices. One good way to visualize this is to look at a switch or a router or a firewall that you're using today. We'll use this device that's here. This could be a firewall. So you can see all the interfaces that are connected to this particular next generation firewall. And this one shows a lot of different interfaces. This is where the data is flowing back and forth, and it's going through this device, probably onto a backplane inside of this device, and being able to forward traffic from one interface to another. We refer to this as the infrastructure layer. In the world of SDN, we commonly refer to it as a data plane because that's where the data is. That's a good way to think about it. Anytime you see data that's being forwarded, data that's going from one place to another, the actual movement of data takes place in the data plane. Now, we have to have some way to manage this device. We have to have a web-based front end. We need to SSH into this device. We need to have some method of configuring this firewall. And one easy way to do this is to use that front end or that SSH through the use of the control plane. Some people refer to this as the control layer of the software-defined network. Now, we also have a separate line or separate plane that's associated with SDN, very often integrated into the control layer and the infrastructure layer. It's the application layer or the management plane where we can actually make those changes into the SDN. Control plane, the results of our changes would go into the control plane. The data runs over the data plane, and then when we actually make the changes, we would do it as part of the management plane. This is probably a better way to look at it through this particular set of descriptions here. So you can see the network traffic down here in the data plane. You've got the control plane where we have to decide where this data is coming from and where this data is going to. Things like routing tables, forwarding tables, MAC address tables, those happen at the control layer or the control plane. And then the management plane itself is where we're doing the management. That's where we're physically making changes to this system. So I think this is where, if you're looking at how you could take a device like a firewall and separate it out into its fundamental pieces so that we can even then maybe virtualize those pieces. You can start to see where this is going in a cloud-based environment. That's where we get this software-defined networking model. And this is one that applies now to practically any of these devices, components, and things that we would add to a cloud-based network is these SDN data flows. So if we are someone who is configuring, you're in the system and you're configuring your security rules, you're in the firewall and you're deciding there's traffic on this network, and if any traffic on this network goes to a different network, we want to allow that traffic. If there's information that is in the that a user is using to get into a web server, we want to allow that traffic to go through. We need to create policies for that inside of our firewall. And we do that from the management plane. The plane that's at the very top is the one that's allowing us to manage the device, usually by using a web-based front end, SSH, SNMP, or talking directly to the application programming interface of this device. All happens at that application layer or the management plane of that particular service. So that's what we were hoping to find, was the management plane to be able to do that. 19% of you chose management plane. Control plane's right in the middle. So control plane is where you have already implemented the changes, and all of those rules, the forwarding, the routing tables, the forwarding tables, those exist at the control plane. We have the data plane where all the data is flowing, and then I kind of made up the active plane and the infrastructure plane. Those don't really exist. So the ones we are focusing on are the data plane, the control plane, and the management plane. Since we are managing the device, we are in the management plane, and 19, almost 20% of you got that one absolutely right. SDN is one of those concepts that the more you use it, the more it becomes familiar. So don't worry if you didn't get that one right. You will find the more we get into SDN, the more you start looking at all of those newer technologies, virtualization, containerization, anything in the cloud, working with software-based technologies for your firewalls, your routers, your switches. All of this applies to SDN. You'll start to see there is a very commonality between all of those to be able to make it happen. So let's see how we do with another question. We're going to keep things going. We have some time left. So let's do another question on our list. This one asks, a security analyst would like to be informed if any core operating system files are modified. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Would it be SIM, SNMP, FIM, NetFlow, or DLP? You got a few choices to choose from there. Let's see if you know what this one is. If you think you know the answer, log in your question by visiting professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Let's go through this question again. It asks, a security analyst would like to be informed if any core operating system files are modified. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Is it SIM, SNMP, FIM, NetFlow, or DLP? If you think you know the answer, just visit the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See how you do with this one. A lot of you putting your answers in on this one. I think we're going to bounce back on this one. See if you know what this one. I'm trying to think if this one would be a 601 or 701 question. I want to say this one may just be a 701. There might be 601 on this one too. Maybe there is 601. Trying to remember. You lose perspective after doing 701 now for a year. You have to kind of think back and what was on the 601. I have to remember myself. But I think it might apply to both of you. Yeah, this one definitely I wanted to throw in as many acronyms as possible. So the moniker of acronym nightmare, I think, applies here. I think that may be a good one to have on this list. Let's see. A lot of you have answered this one. So let's see how you did with this one. The question again asks, a security analyst would like to be informed if any core operating system files are modified. Which of the following would provide this functionality? Is it SIM, SNMP, FIM, NetFlow, or DLP? Let's see what you chose. We'll stop the poll and we can see that we're all over the place. 29% of you say FIM, 27% of you say SNMP, 18% of you say SIM, and 18% of you say DLP. That's effectively a four-way tie for first. Maybe not four-way, certainly a two-way tie for first, two-way tie for second, and then NetFlow coming in third place at about 6%. So the real question we have, and this is a valid question, a valid concern, if you've got an operating system, those operating system files, they rarely change, if ever. Once you install the OS, The only time those are ever going to be updated is when there is a full update to the operating system. Maybe once a month, something like this changes. Maybe those core system files get updated. Very often, core system files, certainly some of them, never change through the duration, the history of that entire operating system. So you can understand why it might be so important for someone who is a security administrator to be able to really understand where you can go to monitor these and be informed immediately if someone was to make a change to one of these very important core files, because nothing should be changing these. If something changes a core operating system file, it's probably malicious, and we need to know about it immediately to be able to make that happen. So we want to do some type of integrity monitoring, and that integrity monitoring needs to take place at the file level. We need to monitor all of these operating system files, and if any of them ever change, we want to be informed of that change. It becomes pretty important. So this is a very common implementation thing to implement for systems. I've been implementing file integrity monitoring on systems, I don't know, for at least 20, 25 years. So this is a tried and true and valuable security technology, and one that you will certainly run into if you're doing anything in IT security. Windows has one. It's not a real-time explanation or real-time alerting system to tell you when something changes, but you can run SFC. This is the System File Checker ad hoc, and it will tell you if all of your operating system files really are up to date or if any of them have been modified. And if it identifies a core operating system file that has been modified, it will correct that file. It will put in the original file and correct things for you to do this. If you are on a different operating system like Linux or Mac OS, there's a number of different technologies out there. I've used Tripwire for a very, very long time. That's another great file integrity monitoring system, one that runs great on the Linux side. So you can monitor those core OS files, or really any file that happens to be in the file system. It doesn't have to be your core operating system. Maybe there's a configuration file that you know should never change. You might want to configure your FIM, your file integrity monitoring system, to look for that individual file so that you know if anybody starts going in and modifying things on that very important configuration file. So that's what we were looking for, was the file integrity monitor, the FIM or FIM, and 29% of you did choose that one as your correct answer. We have 27% of you that chose SNMP, a simple network management protocol, which is a great protocol for alerting and showing you when information is changing on a system, but it's really focusing on the performance aspects of that system. Has data gone in or out of an interface? Are there errors on a particular interface? And in some cases, we can even get more detailed information, like what IP address is talking to another IP address. But SNMP does not monitor individual files. It doesn't check the file system of an operating system. It has no visibility into the file system of the operating system. SNMP, the simple network management protocol, is focusing on network management and not file system management. So we would not use SNMP to be informed if any files happen to change. A SIM is that interface card that you have inside of your mobile phone. These days, they're mostly digital, so you can switch between them. That's more of a mobile device technology, and it doesn't provide any information or notification if a system file happens to be changed in an operating system. NetFlow, well, let's go to DLP first, because 18% of you also chose DLP, data loss prevention. DLP is designed to be able to provide you with an alert and alarm, but only if it notices a specific kind of data traversing the network. So this is one where data loss prevention isn't looking at changes to individual operating system files. It's trying to make sure that nobody transfers credit card numbers over the network, that nobody is sending your private medical information, that nobody is sending out information that has social security numbers inside of it. That's a data loss prevention solution. They can also look for that data that is stored in an operating system file system, but it's really looking for types of private data or sensitive data and preventing that data from being transferred. It's not looking at core operating system files. And lastly, NetFlow, which is really a souped up version of SNMP that also focuses on network communication. It does not look at the file system. It does not provide anything relating to alarming or alerting if a core operating system file is changed. Therefore, the answer here is absolutely going to be a FIM file integrity monitoring system. That's what we wanted to pull from. That is the one that is really the answer we were hoping to find. And indeed, we had 29% of you did a great job on that one and got it absolutely correct. If you are watching this video for continuing education credit, I would love to send you an email that certifies that you are here for a 1-hour webinar category CEU. If you're collecting CEUs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you are not collecting CEUs, then this probably won't apply to you. What you want to do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a link that says Contact Us. And in that Contact Us, you want to put in your name, you want to put in your email address, and in the subject line, please put March 2024 Security Plus. In the body of the message, put the super secret code word of the month. What should we use, everybody? Let's use Core Operating System. Core Operating System. Those are the super secret code words of the month. So again, what you want to do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us. In that Contact Us form, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, put March 2024 Security Plus. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, Core Operating System. That's what we're looking for. And then in about a week or so, I will send you back an email that certifies that you must have been here. It's a digitally signed message. You'll see it when it arrives, but it takes me about a week to turn those around. You don't get it back immediately. I'm so sorry. But I do try to get them back as quickly as possible. So keep looking out for those. And I would absolutely be glad to send you that email. That's the process you use. You must follow that process. If you do not follow that process, you will not receive any of those messages. So that's an important thing to consider as well, is you want to be sure that you're someone who is putting and following the right process, because that is part of the certification process. So that's one of the ways I know that you were here, is you knew the instructions that we only give when we are on these live streams. I'll also tell you, although I don't have information up on the screen right now, well, now I do, is I have a whole list. In fact, I'll show you one of these. I have a set of practice questions. You may not even realize this. It's my practice exams book. I have both digital and physical versions. There are 3 separate practice exams in this very large SY0-701 practice exams. I also have one of these for the 601 exam. So make sure you get obviously the one that is going to be for the exam that you're planning to take. This is a set of 3 separate practice exams with a very similar distribution to what you would find on an actual exam, and perhaps more importantly, has the same style and flavor as actual exam questions. I spend a lot of time examining what a question might look like, and I build all of my questions to be original questions, but they're written in the same style or voice as an actual exam. That might give you a little bit more help when you go to sit down for your exam. Of course, I have both physical and digital editions of those. And as you've already seen, I have a question here that is from my 701 book. This is from page 14, Practice Exam A, question A38. Let's see how you do with this one. Again, of course, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. This question asks, a security administrator has copied a suspected malware executable from a user's computer and is running the program in a sandbox. Which of the following would describe this part of the incident response process? Is this eradication, preparation, recovery, or containment? Now, because this is a PDF, you can make notes on this page. If you have a stylus and you're doing this on a tablet, you can draw on this document. You have complete access to be able to do that. And of course, if you're on a screen like I am here, I have annotation that's built into my PDF reader, so I can make changes on the screen here just by using my mouse if I'd want to. Notice that I also have links built into this. This is page 14. If you just want to know whether the answer is A, B, C, or D, you can scroll forward to page 33, or I put links right in the PDF that if you clicked it, it would take you to page 33. I also have a link to the details, and this is the page I want to show you. I'm going to click this. It's on page 76, and when I click the details, you can see it's a little hand. It goes very quickly to page 76. If I scroll down, you'll even see at the bottom, hey, it made it to page, oh, you can't see it because my head's in the way. You can see it's made it to page 76. There it is. So it really did go to page 76, and it gives us the question again, and it gives us the answers, and it tells us the answer is D, containment. And like many practice exams, it tells you why that is the correct answer. Well, I never get the answer right. So telling me why it's correct doesn't necessarily help me. What I want to know is why the incorrect answer was incorrect, because then I have a chance to understand why I made a mistake. It's a learning opportunity. It's a process to kind of close the circle when you're trying to learn all of these things. So for every incorrect answer in this book, every question has all incorrect answers, all documented. So you can see that it is clearly marked with the proper phrase. You can see that everything on here is exactly what you would be able to choose. So make sure that you are looking through and reading through all of these. In fact, I'll highly recommend that if you even get the answer correct, read through the incorrect answers too, because it's a possibility on your exam that you might not get a question about containment. Maybe the question in your exam is about eradication or preparation or recovery, and there may be important information in those descriptions that helps you understand that topic just a little bit better. Now, if you didn't understand anything in this question and you're wondering, what is he talking about? Right here at the bottom, I have a QR code and a description with a hot link as part of this PDF that will take you to the video where this question was originated from. So if you're trying to figure out what technology is he talking about, what are these things in this question? I don't understand taking a malware and putting it in a sandbox. I don't know what these terms are. You can simply watch the video and learn more about that particular topic so that we can learn in another way, not just in practice questions, but in some of the video content that we already have available. And then once we're done, just like your browser, your PDF reader probably has a back button, takes us right back to where we were. And now we can focus on the next question. Maybe we scroll down to the next one on our list, or we look at another question that we might have. Those are my practice exams books. If you are someone who needs practice questions and you need high quality practice questions, I'll argue this is the highest quality practice question you're going to find anywhere. These are questions that I have written myself. These are not some type of third party that's writing these questions. I don't hand this off to some dumb AI to spit out a bunch of nonsense questions. If you've ever worked with any of the AI front ends, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. These are questions that have been written by someone who knows what they're doing and vetted in a way that we know these are good questions with good answers. So hopefully that's something that can help you. Find out more on my website. Visit ProfessorMesser.com. Use the menus at the top of the page to choose the 601 or the 701 practice exams for this. Well, this brings us kind of to the end of our first hour, but we've got more to come. Don't worry, I've got more questions. Most of these are coming from you. In the meantime, I want to encourage you, if you have not grabbed a set of the practice, the CompTIA exam objectives when you're going through your studies, this is an important document. This tells you everything you need to know to pass your exam. That's pretty important. All of this is documented in a free PDF from CompTIA. If you want this PDF, you can simply go to your favorite search engine and type in CompTIA Exam Objectives, or use the link that's on your screen, ProfessorMesser.com/objectives, and use that link to be able to jump over to the CompTIA website. These are valuable to have. They tell you everything you need to know for the exam. They are very specific to the exam. In fact, the exam rarely, if ever, deviates from this list. That's how important this list is. If you want to know more about it, go to ProfessorMesser.com/objectives and download that. Just a nice freebie to have available. Also let you know that we do one of these study groups every month. When we are not in our Discord, which you should be joining at ProfessorMesser.com/Discord, you can find us here. Go to professormesser.com/live, or if you're wondering when the next live event is going to be, go to professormesser.com/calendar. We have our next live event that is currently scheduled for April the 24th. Will it be on April the 24th? I hope so. Could it be rescheduled? It could. And that's why it's important to always check in with the calendar and go to professormesser.com/calendar, or simply use the calendar link at the top of the Professor Messer website. I also keep a copy of these events on our Discord. There's an events channel, so you can always go there and find the same information in the Discord channel as well. Lot to see along those lines. Well, we've gone through an hour of Q&A already. Can you believe it? I cannot. But we're not done yet. This is the part where we sort of turn this boat around and we have you ask me questions instead of me simply asking you questions all the time. This is where we would go. Don't forget about our Twitter, our Instagram, our YouTube channel. If you liked this, we would love it if you gave it a thumbs up. There's a reason we always ask for that, because our friends at YouTube are constantly watching for those statistics. It's a great way to tell them that this is information that you find valuable on their platform. And if you really liked it and you'd like to be informed whenever we introduce a new video, we would love it if you would subscribe to our channel. We'll be your friend forever, I promise you. Find out more at professormesser.com/YouTube. Of course, don't forget about our voucher discounts. You could, of course, go to the CompTIA website and pay full price, or go to professormesser.com/vouchers and get a discounted voucher for that. Of course, our course notes, our practice exams, and everything else is available on our website. It's a great place to go to find information that's going to help you pass your Security Plus exam. Well, stick around for the after show. We got a lot more to come. Thank you for joining us in this first hour, and we will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. All right, I'm going to take a sip. Boy, you go a little bit off mic there, and it really does a thing there. Okay, now it's the after show. We did very well with that first hour. Let's see how we do with the second hour. I'm going to now close this poll out, and we're going to tell you that you can submit questions from that front end. Here's what you should see in your Vevox front end by going to professormesser.com/QA. You can submit questions for the second hour of the study group at any time. We'll be moderating questions during the session. So when you submit this, it doesn't appear on your screen immediately, but I do see it on my side. So don't worry. I will see all of this, and then we can step through and get an understanding of what questions you might have. So I'm going to start going through this list. This is the best way to get data or to get questions to me, is to go to professormesser.com/QA, use that tab at the top of the screen to flip over to the question side, and that would be a good one to step through. So a lot of questions have already come in. I'm going to start going through this list. The first question is the one that I suspected I would get. So I already have some prepared content for you because I think it's a good question for the people that are studying for these exams. I wonder if I even have it immediately. Yes, I do have it immediately available. I just have to make it so that you can see it on your screen. So this question that came in from the very first question here is from Alfredo. Thank you for your question, Alfredo. Alfredo asks, compared to the 601, how much of a difference is there? I'm assuming you're referring specifically to the 701. That would make sense, wouldn't it? That is the question here. In fact, if you are trying to choose between the 601 exam and the 701 exam, you may be in a place where you're trying to figure that out. Well, if we were to break down the exam into its tiniest components, if we were to break it down into the individual topics, I refer to these often as the exam objectives. If we were to look at each individual exam objective and we were to look at the 601 as a whole and look at the 701 as a whole and really break down what are the differences between them, how much of the 601 is still in the 701, how much of the 601 was dropped completely, how much in the 701 is brand new? Well, you don't have to calculate it. I've already done this for you. And if we were to put this into a beautiful, gorgeous, well-established Venn diagram here, yes, you're talking to the artist himself, you would have this. So immediately you can see there are some relatively dramatic differences between these two exams. And indeed, the 701 exam is very different than the 601. I've already mentioned that earlier in the live stream. The first thing you'll notice is that they're different in size. One of the things I was most surprised with about 3.5 years ago when I put together my 601 course is I was halfway through, I'm thinking, this is a huge course. It's much bigger than the previous Security Plus, the 501. And I noticed it was really big. It's a super large course to go through. Bigger than A Plus, bigger than Network Plus. It was pretty large. There were a lot of topics there. In fact, if you were to count them, just over 1,000 topics, individual exam objective topics in the 601 exam. The 701 exam, as you can see by the Venn diagram, a little bit smaller. 662 objectives if you count them in the similar way. So the 701 exam, not quite as large. This may help a bit if you're studying because there's obviously fewer topics that you need to know about. But that may or may not be your biggest concern with this. So you need to evaluate what those differences are yourself and see if that really makes a difference for you. Another thing you'll notice is that 710 of those 1,000 or so objectives, so 700 of the 1,000 were effectively dropped. Almost 70% of the 601 exam does not appear in the 701. That sort of makes sense. If you're going to make the exam slightly smaller, you're going to have to drop some stuff. There's things that are just going to have to be left alone. They're not going to make it into the new exam. Laws of physics still apply. The counting system, our mathematics, cannot be modified. If we were to make the exam smaller, something has to be thrown away. So obviously some topics are not going to appear on there. And as you could see, the 701 does kind of do a very good job of mixing the old with the new. It's almost a 50-50 split between the older topics that are in the 601 and the newer topics that are in the 701. And I hate to use the terms older and newer because all of these topics in both the 601 and the 701 are current security technologies. Nothing in either of these exams I could point to and say, well, we don't use that anymore. We use all of this. The real scope, though, or the idea is that we need to provide you with a certification that is reasonable, one that you can get your arms around and be able to understand these topics. So this is one where if you're trying to make that decision right now, I mentioned earlier in the study group, maybe I would want to go with the 701. There are some benefits there. First, it's a little bit smaller, so maybe that helps some, maybe it doesn't, but there is a difference in size. And some of the topics are newer, so maybe there will be some different topics that are things I haven't studied before, which might be interesting to me. And if I was going to choose one right now, I would probably choose the 701. So you can tell there's a big difference there. I've gotten some emails from folks. I've seen some posts online where people feel that there's not really a big difference between these two. I guess if you approach it from a very broad perspective, if you just look at the 5 different domains, I guess effectively Security Plus is Security Plus, right? They're Security Plus topics on both of these exams. I'm really looking at very detailed statistics here, very detailed level of these two exams. So I guess it depends on what your approach is. Hopefully that's given you some idea of where you can go with both of those and what things may be the right place to go if you're studying for those exams. It's a great question. Thank you for submitting that, Alfredo. Let's do another question and things that you might have here. This is along these same lines. This is a great follow-up from Anonymous who says, so since the 601 is retiring, how does that affect CEUs? Well, I will tell you that retirement of a certification exam means almost nothing outside the scope of those particular questions. The retirement of a certification exam is only telling you all of these questions that we've created for the 601 are going away. You won't be able to take an exam with those questions ever again. Instead, you've got to take an exam with the 701 questions. That's the only difference when they retire an exam. That's the only thing that's affected. If you were to take your 601 exam and you were to take it on the day that the exam retires, you waited until July 31st of this year. Don't do this, by the way. Do not do this. But let's say you did. There will be people that do this. They will wait until the very last day to take their exam. It's July 31st. They've gone to the testing center. They take their exam and they passed. They passed their exam. They are Security Plus certified. But the exam retires the next day on August the 1st. Does that mean they're only certified for a few hours? Nope, it does not. It only means they can't take the 601 exam on August the 1st. Once you pass your exam, even if there are only minutes left in the exam lifetime, you are certified for 3 years. So the people that are studying for the 601 right now, keep studying. The people that are planning to take their exam and pass it before July 31st, keep doing that and pass the exam before July 31st. Once you pass the exam, you are certified for 3 years and you're Security Plus certified. You're not 601 certified or 701 certified. You're Security Plus certified. So let's say right now today, someone went out and took their 601 exam and they passed it. The person sitting next to them is taking the 701 exam and they passed that one. Both individuals are Security Plus certified with the same certification. There's no difference between those. In fact, if you want to think back, let's go back 10 years to the 401 exam, the 501 exam. And let's say somebody took their exam and passed it back then, 10 years ago. But every 3 years they have renewed their certification. They are just as Security Plus certified as somebody who passes their exam today. So we're not really focusing on the questions you take. You're focusing on passing this and earning this certification. So Security Plus is Security Plus is Security Plus. The 601 retiring doesn't affect your CEUs. It doesn't affect your renewals. It doesn't affect your qualifications. All it means is that you can't take that exam anymore. And if you're already Security Plus certified, that shouldn't matter. You've got lots of things you can go through, and getting that certification, regardless of when the exam is retired or not, is the important part. So pick the right one, go take that exam. But once you pass the exam, they could change the exam every day. They could retire the exam every day. Doesn't matter. You're Security Plus certified. So you don't have to worry about it. So I'm hoping that you pass your Security Plus exam and immediately don't worry about anything else relating to the retirement of any particular exam version, because at that point, you don't care. You've already passed your exam, and hopefully you'll never have to take that exam again. In fact, there's many ways to renew your certification, so you never have to take that exam again. Let's do some more on this list. We'll keep going through here. I want to take this one from Jeff first, and then we're going to go back to one talking about certifications to get while you are in college. We'll start with this one from Jeff that asks, I've seen some sample tests, and while helpful, they're usually only multiple choice. Are there any sample tests that use performance-based questions? You have to wonder about that, don't you, Jeff? That I've seen these as well. I went out to the internet. I looked around at the different exams that are out there. I looked at the quality of the exams that are available for free on the internet. Awful. Generally, some are okay. Most are not. I looked at how they are written. Some of them are written okay. Some of them are not written very well. Certainly don't seem to have the same style or tone as the actual exam. And a lot of the stuff I find online isn't even topical. It's asking questions that have nothing to do with the current version of the exam objectives. This is a good question, though, because as I mentioned before, the first handful of questions you get on your exam are not multiple choice questions. They are performance-based questions. And so when I started writing my book of practice questions, one of the first things I put in my book, let's see if I can bring it up on the screen so you can really see what's here. I'm going to bring up my sample questions again. In my practice exams book, in the very front of the book, with each exam, in these 3 separate practice exams that I have in my book, I have performance-based questions. Here's a good example of a performance-based question. Just one. I have 5 performance-based questions for each exam. So in my book, there are 15 total performance-based questions. Now, the other thing I'll tell you is that performance-based questions are not something difficult, secret, hard to figure out. They are questions that they come directly from the exam objectives. It's content that you already know about. So don't worry so much about how they're asking the questions. You should be concerned about the topic that is in the questions. And as it turns out, those exam objectives that I've been talking about this whole time, that's where that content is coming from. So yes, they could ask you a multiple choice based question, or it might be a matching question, which effectively is like a bunch of multiple choice based questions combined into the single thing. I think it will be very easy for you to be able to follow these and be able to understand what's being asked of you. And if you know everything that's in the exam objectives, you'll be able to answer the performance-based questions without a problem. You will not have to worry about that at all. I certainly add performance-based questions to my sample tests. A lot of the performance-based questions, CompTIA has them in their sample tests, in their CertMaster practice courses. They have there in there. And I'm sure there are other folks out there in their practice exams that will offer performance-based questions as well. But a lot of times you don't find those online. A lot of places will not publish performance-based questions. It's an important consideration, and I think it's worthwhile that you ask the question. So thank you for submitting that. I mentioned there was a question earlier about understanding what to do when you are in college with certifications. This is from Anonymous, who says, I'm 22 years old, studying IT at a community college, my last year for my associate degree. If you were in my situation, what would you do? What certifications would you go for? This is a good question, and there's no right answer or wrong answer on this one. It really depends on a number of different criteria. First, I like the idea that you went to a community college. They tend to have better IT programs for some reason than four-year state universities. I don't know. Well, I know why that is, but I don't understand why that is. But it is a case that I think you probably get a better IT education at community college. And I'm a proud community college graduate myself. So I think you've made a good decision there. The real question is, what do you want to do with the cert? And that is probably where we should start. Let's say you're at a community college in Virginia. I would bet a lot of the places that are around you in your geography are asking for Security Plus, because the federal government, the U.S. federal government, a lot of those jobs in IT ask you to have the Security Plus certification. That's their minimum when you're looking for jobs like that. But maybe you're in Dallas, maybe you're in Texas, and you're not working or trying to get a job or interested in working with a company that does any type of federal type of work. Maybe not a federal contractor, and maybe it's not an office that is federal. Instead, maybe it's a state and local government. Maybe it's a finance company. Maybe it's a manufacturing organization. Maybe it's transportation. Maybe it's healthcare. And you look through their job postings and you notice they're all asking for A+. All right, well, maybe A+ is the right place to go. So this is really an answer that I'm giving you that's a non-answer, which is it really does depend. And I would highly recommend that you do a little research. Now, you're in college, you're used to doing research. Go out to your favorite job posting sites. Go to LinkedIn Jobs, go to Indeed, go to Dice, go to whatever your favorite site is to be able to look at these job postings. And look at job postings for entry-level IT in your area. Help desk positions, service desk positions, remote field service, anything that is entry-level IT, and see what they're asking for. Are they asking for A+? Are they asking for Security Plus? Are they asking for something else? It might be a different certification they're looking for. Maybe that's where you might want to lean into that one. Once you compile it, maybe you've looked at 10 different jobs in your area, 20 different jobs in your area, and now you have some interesting stats. How many of those jobs are asking for A+? How many of those jobs are asking for Security Plus? How many of those jobs are asking for some other certification? What are they? Keep a tally. Use your spreadsheet. Go to Google Sheets, use your spreadsheet, put them in there, track them over time, and get an idea of exactly what they would like to see in the certification. That may give you a direction of where you might want to go. And in fact, I think that's probably a good idea to be able to match up your requirements or the things you'd like to study with what people would like you to have. That's a win-win. And when you're ready to get that job right out of school, you'll have some credentials already in your pocket. Let's keep going through this list and see what other questions you might have available. It's a lot of great questions coming in. As always, of course, you can submit your questions with the link on your screen. go to professormesser.com/QA to submit your questions. Other questions that are here. Now, we got a couple of questions that came in, almost two identical questions. So I'm going to combine these together. We'll do this one and we'll do this one so that we can see what may be here. These are questions from CH and from Anonymous. And it asks, should I write the A+ exam before Security Plus? That's from Anonymous. And then CH says, should I have my Network Plus before getting my Security Plus? Looking to be a SOC analyst. So let's talk about this. What do you do first? What do you do second? Do you need to do something first? Can you just jump into the Security Plus without doing an A+ or Network Plus? These are things we need to know. So the first thing to keep in mind, or the first thing to know about the CompTIA exams, is there is no formal prerequisite. That means that you could take your Security Plus exam and there's no requirement that you take and pass A+, Network Plus, or really anything else. You can study for your Security Plus, walk into a testing center, or take your exam at home and take and pass your Security Plus without any other type of certification, qualification, or anything else that is on your resume. So that's a nice benefit, I think, that if you're trying to get started in IT, you get to decide where to start. You're not forced down a particular funnel or a particular set of prerequisites just to take one of these certifications. This is not always the case when it comes to certifications. Some certifications have extensive prerequisites. Some certifications require that you already be working in the industry a number of years just to get that certification exam, just to take and pass that exam and earn that certification. So that's another thing to keep in mind. CompTIA doesn't care. So that means it's up to you to determine if it's important or not. We can kind of think back to the question we just had about taking a certification when you're in community college, where we look to see what do employers want us to have? And that's a great place to go here. Let's kind of focus on CH, who says, I want to be a SOC analyst. This is not referring to Dobby being a free elf. This is referring to a security operations center. This is what we're really trying to focus on. In fact, many large organizations have a separate network operations center, a NOC. They might also have a security operations center, or a SOC. They might also have a help desk, which is more of a desktop or server operations center, if you want to think of it that way. So this is one where it's almost like a help desk, but for security. That's what a SOC is. Or a help desk, but for networking. That's what a NOC is. So when you start working in those types of environments, this is a great opportunity to get in at an entry-level position that is for a series of topics and job roles that could very easily move you up very quickly. Security Operations Center is a good example of this. When you start in a Security Operations Center, you're keeping track of the current security status of all of your servers and all of your workstations and mobile devices. You are managing different threats that you happen to see coming in. You are probably, your Security Operations Center is probably managing the process of actively scanning and looking for vulnerabilities on your systems. And you are, of course, monitoring any inbound attacks to determine what may be happening with systems. Maybe you're implementing file integrity monitoring. Maybe you're implementing different types of multi-factor authentication. Maybe you're responsible for monitoring the IPsec tunnels that you've created between different sites. All of these responsibilities are contained within the Security Operations Center, the SOC. Where you can usually start, though, these are great opportunities to start at the entry level because, quite honestly, there aren't a lot of entry-level security positions out there. So I often tell people, look to see if there's a SOC that is in your area and get one of those very first entry-level positions into the SOC. This is almost like getting an entry-level position into a help desk, except it's a help desk for security. Think of it that way. So you're probably first level. You're the first line of attack when the phone rings and you pick it up and somebody says, I think my system has a virus. Now you need to know what to do. There's this whole set of processes in place. You'll be trained on what to do. Okay, here's what we're going to do. And then we start figuring out triaging. What do you see on the screen? Let's capture this information. Let me get you over to somebody who's specially trained to react And there's probably people in that building that you'll contact. They'll go to this person's site, they'll pick up their computer and take it away and replace it with something else. That's very commonly how companies deal with those types of things. So that way you've got people standing by with extra systems that will remove the virus from the environment and replace it with a known good system. But there has to be somebody to take that call. Now, in the process of taking those phone calls and figuring out the processes and procedures, you get to meet the people, you get to know the company, you get to understand the processes and procedures they use for these security issues. You get to see really interesting things in security, sometimes too interesting, but sometimes it's a learning process for all of us. And that's where you start to get an opportunity of where you can move up. So if you want to be an analyst in a security operations center, getting there at the very beginning, starting at the bottom and working your way up is a very common way to do it if you don't currently have any type of security experience, knowledge, or any track record in the industry with IT security. So I think that's a great opportunity. CH is spot on. You're right on the money. That's where you want to go to be able to figure out if that's a good place to start. Same thing might apply for Network Plus. If you want to be someone who manages switches, routers, you want to design networks, you want to have wide area network capabilities, SD-WAN and everything else, you want to be on the network side. Maybe you want that entry-level position in the Network Operations Center or the NOC. Same thing applies. We need to find a company that has a NOC, find out what positions are open, and we want to apply to those in those entry-level positions so that you can then start moving up in the organization. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of things you can look for, jobs that may be a good choice, maybe things that might make more sense if you're somebody who's trying to get into that line of work. Those are places where you want to definitely start making some relationships and knowing the people that are currently working at those organizations. Let's keep going through this mix. Let's see what other things are here. So since we're talking about 601 and 701, let's take this question from Artemis, who says, let's say we complete the security plus 601. Do you think it's worth doing the 701? What benefits other than gaining familiarity? Well, remember when I mentioned there's these two exams we can take right now up until July 31st. So if you're watching this video after July 31st, 2024, this question is irrelevant because the Security Plus 601 will be retired. But right now, at least for the next number of months, we could take either one of these. We could take the 601 and pass it. We're Security Plus certified. We could take the 701 and pass it, and we're Security Plus certified. It's the same regardless of which one we take. So from a practical perspective, if you take the 601 exam and you pass it, you don't need to take the 701 exam. It gains you nothing. Maybe a little bit of extra knowledge that comes from those newer topics that are on the 701 exam. But if you were to take the 701 exam, which you could do, CompTIA does not prevent you from taking these exams back to back. Not many benefits there. The only benefit that might be somewhat legitimate here is that if we take a higher level version of an exam and pass it, then we are effectively renewing our certification at that point. So we could wait a year, take the 701, and now we've effectively renewed our 601 exam. All right, think of it that way, or 601 certification, or the certification we earned when we took our 601. I really don't want to call it a 601 certification because it isn't. It's just Security Plus. There is no version number associated with the cert. So not really a lot of benefits there. If you're really just looking at gaining familiarity with these topics, just go read through 701 content. Go watch my 701 videos. There's no need to take another exam at that point. You've now just learned everything you need to know. You don't have to take another certification exam to be able to do that. So that's why I tell people pick one, but you don't have to pick both. In fact, you don't want to pick both. Pick one and go with it. Take the 601 and pass it, or take the 701 and pass it. You don't want to do both. Really unnecessary. Not a lot of great benefits there. And ultimately, you really want to focus on where you're going to make the most amount of traction in your career. redoing the Security Plus, if you're already Security Plus certified, doesn't get you very far. You should be putting your effort into maybe a higher level certification, into a different certification. Go put your efforts there. That way at the end, now you have 2 certs instead of one single cert that you just studied twice. Hopefully that makes some sense. Because of course it does. Let's keep going through this list of other questions that you have submitted. So let's see. There's some good questions in here. Some of these I'm not going to bite on. Some of these, I think some of you are sending me leading questions. No, it would never happen to be able to do that. So I'm probably not going to bite on the leading questions, but I will kind of address some of them as we go through some of these other questions that are there. Okay, let's, since we were kind of talking about jobs and security, we've already talked about the SOC. We've already talked about doing other things. Let's take this scenario from Jeremiah, which is a very common one to consider. Jeremiah writes, I've been looking for a career change into IT and cybersecurity. I've been working in construction since I was 15 out of a lack of choice. Now I'm 22. Where do you recommend I start? Well, as somebody who did himself work in the fields, I did have a job working in agriculture, as we say, which means they took me out in the field every morning, handed me a hoe and said, go to work. The idea of physical labor is one that is very satisfying, but it is one that is very difficult. It's one that in the life of an individual, it's not something you can do for your entire career. Eventually the body gives out when you deal with those. So the real question here is, how do we get into IT? If we are in any other role, maybe you're in transportation, maybe you drive a truck, maybe you're in medical, maybe you're in manufacturing, maybe you work in Amazon, maybe you're in retail right now. I have worked retail. I have worked in the fields. I have worked these types of jobs where you were hoping to find a job in technology. Maybe my work in retail really did push me into IT because I felt more interested in the technical world than I did the retail world. So in that scenario, though, we need to find an easy way to kind of move from one type of job to another. And there are a lot of different things we can do. The first thing I will tell you, Jeremiah, is there is in the YouTube video description of this video, there is a link to the video that I've already made, which is how to get a job in IT with no experience. Sort of the question you're asking. And I made that video because a lot of people ask this question. It is a 30-minute video. I know. In the world of YouTube, in the world of very little time that people like to spend on any single video, that's a lifetime to sit through. You're welcome to speed it up if you would like to maybe 1.5 or 2x, but it is chock full of information. I've taken everything that I've accumulated in my multifaceted technical career, and I've tried to get it all in this single video. So if you're looking for every angle you can use, you're looking for every strategy that can get you into the world of IT, you're looking for things that may not even be technical that can help you, they're in this video. So I highly recommend you go through everything in that video so that you really understand the approach. It's really 4 different things. Here's the executive summary for you. I want you to have a formal education. You may or may not have that. You don't have to have all of these, but they help. A formal education of some kind, a high school diploma, an AA degree from a community college, a 4-year degree from a university. All of these are great things to have. Employers still look at them. Not completely necessary, but it certainly helps. The second thing on the list is formal industry certifications of some kind. So the A+, the Network Plus, the Security Plus, other types of entry-level certifications. Employers like it when you are certified. And so those are valuable things to put on your resume as well. Having an A+, if you're looking for an entry-level job in IT, would be a great place to start. Third on the list is having some type of practical experience. So there are things you can do on your laptop at home, on your computer at home, that if you're spending your time on video games, You can easily spend that time building a set of virtual machines, installing Windows Server, installing firewalls, stepping through Packet Tracer from Cisco. And there are tons of videos, not just mine, but other people on the internet, on YouTube, that are more than happy to help step you through all of these different technologies and get you more understanding of how these networks operate, how these computers work, how the storage systems work, how the file systems work inside of these operating systems, how security focuses on all of these. There's information out there just ready for you to take, but you have to reach out and grab it and bring it back to your systems. And you probably have computing systems in your house that can easily run a virtual machine. You can get some practical experience right now. And I talk about that in my video as well. And then lastly, and this may be the thing that I think most people don't consider, that fourth thing that I mentioned, the fourth element of getting a job in IT with no experience, is you know someone who already works there. You would think that this would be something that many people would focus on, because the term you always hear people say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. There is some truth to that. The reality is, of course, it's not only who you know, it's also what you know. You really have to have both of those. But it helps a lot if you know someone who already works there. And we're not talking about someone who is a close friend. We're not talking about a blood relative. We're just talking about someone who's an acquaintance. Maybe you go to a Cisco user group meeting that's local. Maybe you go to a Microsoft user group meeting. You meet some people there in your local area. And after going to a few meetings and meeting them and talking to them, you can even ask them, hey, I'm in the market to get an entry-level IT position. Do you folks have a help desk? Are you hiring right now? Can I give you my resume and hand it to the folks in HR? You may think offhand, that's a little forward to simply foist your resume upon somebody. But here's what you may not realize is many of these companies, almost all companies, have an employee referral program where if you already work there and you bring a resume in and hand it to HR, and HR hires that person, they give you a finder's fee. They pay you for bringing resumes in. It's almost like free money. And so when you're asking someone already working in a company, hey, can I give you my resume so that you can sort of pass it on to HR and say, here's someone who goes to the Microsoft user group meeting and they might be good for this entry-level help desk position. They're almost always going to say, yes, you should send me your resume. You should absolutely send me your resume if they haven't asked for it already. There are many people I have worked with who will always ask in a user group meeting, hey, why don't you send me your resume? Like they don't even ask for you to say, can I send it? They go, you should send me your resume. And they just keep sending resumes into HR. It's a numbers game. And they're going to hire one of these people. And that person who gave the resume, the person who showed up first with your resume, they get the finder's fee. So that all of those things I just described are in the video that is in the YouTube video description on this video, or it's on my channel. Just search for Professor Messer, how to get a job in IT with no experience, and you'll be able to find it. That's the one that has all of these details. So if you're looking to move out of construction and get an entry-level job in IT, I think that might give you some strategies you can use to be able to do exactly that. Might help you quite a bit. So have a look, see if that's something that you think might help when you're working through that as well. So let's keep going. Let's keep going through the list of questions that you have submitted and other things that you have here. Boy, you guys are really good with some of these questions. Thank you so much for submitting these. Let's see. This is another one. I think I already answered a number of these, so I'm just going to archive those. Many of you who have submitted questions can probably already guess the ones that we have already talked about. So let's talk about CEUs real quick. As you recall, as we were going through this video in the first hour, I talked about how you could earn a 1-hour webinar category CEU. And if you'd like to know how to do that, you can go back and look at something somewhere in that first hour. I mentioned this. Amandu says, I've been watching your videos, but I have not been requesting the CEUs. can I watch the videos again and request the CEUs again? Or is it, how does that work? Can I do it in batches? Can we do it one at a time? Let me tell you the best way to do it. You could do it either way, but the best way to do it is to send them to me one at a time. And that's because I have an automated system on my side where I look at the request that came in. I verify the month. I verify the super secret passcode. I make sure that everything is legit. And then I have a process that kind of scrapes the data off of that email and then places it into the proper certification email, digitally signs the email, and sends it to you. So you know nothing in that email has been changed, and people are able to verify that email afterwards. Non-repudiation. That's the benefit of a digital signature after all, correct? So this is practical security that we are doing through the use of the CEU emails and using digital signatures. So that's why submitting them one at a time means all I have to do is visually look and then just press a button, click, and then it sends off everything to you. Makes it so much easier for me. When they come in a batch, somebody's sending an email and here's 10 CEUs, because that is the maximum that you can submit in any 3-year renewal period. Here's 10 CEUs, please send me the list. Well, then I have to manually parse each one of these out, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, look at it, confirm. So there's a little more extra work I have to do on my side. So if you're interested in making it as easy as possible for me, thank you. I appreciate that. And the way you do that is to submit them one at a time. And I would be greatly appreciative if you would do it that way. It helps me out so much to be able to submit these. Now, these continuing education unit credits are provided by people like me that you can use to renew your certification, but it's not the only way to renew your cert. There's lots of different ways to renew your certification. If you go to the CompTIA website, they will list out all of the ways to renew your cert. If you're interested in continuing education, it's right at the top of the screen is the continuing education section, and you can go through the entire process of how you renew, what the path will be that you can choose, and then if you're going to submit CEUs, that's how you could do it. You can go to renew them. It has all of the details right there on the CompTIA website. That's what I would recommend you do, is follow that path. A lot of people are using that to be able to find the best way to renew. And it's all listed there. There's a lot of different ways. So there's a lot to read through. But don't worry, CompTIA does summarize everything on their website. And most every question you have about renewal is going to be on those pages. And I recommend you have a look at those. Speaking of renewal, Allison says, can you only renew your certificate by taking the next exam in 3 years? Well, you can't. That's not the only way to renew a certificate, but you can take a newer version of an exam as a method of renewing your certification. It is probably the hardest way to renew, is to take the exam again, unless this is just content that you deal with all the time. Maybe you write training courses for Security Plus. And if you do that, you're probably able to walk into the exam room at any time and pass the exam because you're already familiar with the content. But a lot of folks who have passed their Security Plus exam, they do not want to take the Security Plus exam again. And I really can't blame them for that. I would then tell you what you want to do is you can use that as a method of renewal. You could take a third-party certification exam for renewal. You could take a higher level view, a higher level exam, maybe take the CASP or the CISA Plus. Those renew your Security Plus, and then you get 2 certs out of the deal. See, there might be some benefit to taking a different exam. And then you've got other things that you can do, like collecting CEUs. You can take, we talked about third-party exams, and there's CertMaster CE, which is another way to renew your certification, which is a computer-based training program from CompTIA where you have to effectively go through the newer content. It asks you questions. You have to get all the questions right. If you don't get all the questions right, you have to do it again until you get them all right, and then you can go to the next section. So this is a renewal process that takes a number of hours, but if you are on your last day to renew, and you've not collected CEUs, you've not taken any other certifications, you have no other way to renew, CertMaster CE is a great way to renew because it's one that effectively renews your certification just a few hours. And indeed, I have a video for this as well. In the YouTube video description of this video is how to renew your certification in just a few hours. Have a look at that video, and that will help you know the best way for you to renew your cert. Maybe for you, the best way is to take the Security Plus exam again. Keep in mind, though, you can, once you pass an exam like the 601, you can't take the 601 exam again. You're locked out. That's it. Once you take it and pass it, you can't take that version of the exam again. But if you take the 601 and pass it, you could take the 701 exam and pass that one. Now, if you pass the 701, you can't take the 701 exam again. So once you've passed an exam version, you can't take that version of the exam again. So just another thing to keep in mind. So no, if you pass the 601, you can't take the 601 exam again and somehow renew your cert. That won't work. They already thought of that one. Can't do that one. Let's do another question. Other exams that we have in this, well, along those same lines, since we're talking about certs and taking exams and doing that, Anonymous asks, well, instead of CEUs, if I want to take an exam instead and I fail, do I still keep the one that I earned as long as it's still current? And the short answer is absolutely yes. So if you were to take and pass the 601 exam and it's good for 3 years, let's say we passed it today, it's good for 3 years. So let's say next week you wanted to take the 701 exam. You take the 701 exam next week and you failed. You think, oh no, I just failed Security Plus. Am I no longer Security Plus certified? Of course not. You're still certified for 3 years or 2 years and 51 weeks. You're still got all of that time that you've banked up, that 3-year time frame. You're still on that 3-year cycle. So you can take as many other Security Plus exams in the meantime and fail them. It does not affect your existing Security Plus certification, thankfully, for all of us. That's the case. But again, you probably aren't taking the exam again. There's so few people that take the exam more than once. There are many other much easier and much more convenient and probably more inexpensive ways to renew your certification. And that's what I would recommend that you would do instead of taking the exam again. We got a few minutes left, so let's keep going. We have others on this list, others that are here. This is a good one, I think, because I've got some personal story on this one. This is from AP, who asks, I only have Security Plus. Is there any value in, quote unquote, going backwards and getting the A+? Well, I will first tell you that you're not going backwards. The A+ exam and certification, the Network Plus certification, and the Security Plus certification are all effectively IT entry-level certifications. And they focus on different topics. A+ is very focused on hardware, operating systems, the basics of networking and security, but it primarily focuses on using Windows and the hardware that Windows runs on. The networking certification, Network Plus, focuses on fundamentals of networking. How does IP work? How do switches operate? What about routing? What's the difference between static routing and dynamic routing? There's some security built into that one as well, but it focuses on network technologies. And then obviously Security Plus, for all of us that are on this call, we probably know that Security Plus is one that focuses on IT security. So you're not really going backwards if you get Security Plus first and then go get your A+, because you may find that there's a job posting out there that would like you to have your A+ certification. And if you show up and go, I don't need my A+ certification, I'm Security Plus certified. And they'll look at you and go, no, you need your A+ certification. Security Plus didn't teach you about hardware, it didn't teach you about Windows, it didn't teach you about Linux, it didn't teach you about Mac OS. You still need those skills. And so you need to pick the right cert for the job you want. And maybe that's Security Plus. If you live in Virginia, Washington, D.C. area, Maryland, probably is Security Plus. If you live in LA, it might be another cert. If you live in Dallas or Minneapolis or Chicago, maybe a different set of certs. It just depends on what employers in your area are looking for. So to answer your question, is there value in getting your A+? Yes. Is there value in getting your Network Plus? Absolutely. Are you going backwards? You are not. So I don't accept the premise of the question. I don't think you're going backwards. I think you're going laterally, but you're gaining skills and knowledge in a different set of topics. And depending on the job that you're looking for, those may be very, very important topics to know. Let's go through another question. I've got more in this list. Here's someone thinking. Someone's thinking ahead. And they go, wait a second. Is it possible to get a job without a certification and then have the company pay for the exam? I like the way you're thinking. Now we're strategizing. Now we're trying to figure it out. So yeah, it is possible to get a job without a certification. IT certifications are not licensing. If you're going through nursing school and you want to become a registered nurse, at least in the United States, I think it's pretty much the same everywhere, is you earn your 4-year degree in nursing from a college or a university, and then you have to take the board exams, the nursing board. There's a whole different set of exams. Same thing applies if you want to be a lawyer, you have to take the bar exam. If you want to be a doctor, you have to take the doctor exam, whatever they call it. It's the doctor exam. You know what I mean? But if you want to be a nurse, it's not enough just to get your 4-year degree. You have to pass the board exam for your state there you happen to live in, or your country, however they do it, where you happen to live. So that's a really good example of where there are these processes, these licenses you must earn and register with an authority to even be qualified to have that job. Doesn't work that way in IT. So in IT, we don't have these strict board certifications that are required to do your job. Instead, we have these broader industry certifications that we can decide which one fits our particular interest or goals. We can take those certs, and then hiring managers will understand that you have that cert and therefore have an understanding of some of the skills that you have prepared for, that you might be qualified for. So it's a little broader, it's a little bit different in its approach, and it's not a must-have. So technically speaking, it is possible to get a job, an IT job, without an IT certification. Now, obviously, it's a little harder to get an IT job without a certification, especially if the other people trying to get that same job already have that certification. They already have an A+. They already have a Network Plus. They already have a Security Plus. Now you're competing with them. So that may be a difficult thing to compete with because they have skills and credentials that they're bringing to the table that you can't prove that you have, even if you have them. Becomes a little bit more of a challenge. But if you are somehow able to get a job with a company, and it's an entry-level IT position, practically every place I've ever worked in an organization, small companies and big companies, very often have a training program. They have a way that they want you to be a better employee. They want you to continue to gain skills. They want you to learn new things because that not only makes you better as a person, as an individual, and as an employee, it also helps the company. So that's a win-win. And in fact, the credentials that you might earn by going through that training process are credentials that you can take with yourself. You take the rest of your career wherever you happen to go, because it's probably unlikely that you are going to stay with one company for the entirety of your IT career. So because of that, you should probably look into what the particular benefits are for that company when it comes to education. Some companies will send you to college for free. Some of them will give you a certain number of credit hours that you can take every semester for free. Why would you not want to take advantage of that? In fact, there's a great opportunity to go to your local community college, get a free course in A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Cisco, Amazon, cloud technologies, whatever it happens to be. Find the thing that interests you and go take those classes, especially if your employer offers them for free. What an opportunity, right? What a chance to become more knowledgeable in things that will help you in your career, and you won't have to pay for it. So whether you get that cert walking in the door, whether you don't get that cert walking in the door, that's completely up to you. You have to figure out the details there, but you may find that your company does support you going out and getting those courses for free. Those are great benefits. And I have personally taken advantage of those benefits when working with a company, especially when it comes to certifications in IT. Getting that certification is a valuable thing to have. You just need to look at the details. Sometimes you have to stay with the organization a certain number of months or years after taking those courses, or you have to pay back a certain amount. It just depends on the company. Every company is a little bit different when it comes down to that. Some companies don't care. They just say every quarter, every semester, you can take this many courses for free or this certain amount of dollars for free, and that's it. We don't expect anything else from you. What a great benefit. That's a great place to go. And in fact, I think that's a great thing to take advantage of if it's something available to you. And it's might even propel you to the next level of your degree or your career, whether it's with that company or with a different company. It's one of those that I think of, if you've gotten into an organization and you have that first job in IT, here's your chance to learn more. And if you have an interest in networking, go get a networking cert. If you're interested in security, go get a security cert. If you want to know more about Windows, go get some Windows certs. Go get cloud-based certifications. Go whatever it happens to be. Figure out what interests you the most and go get it, especially if it's not going to cost you anything, because that is a great way to know exactly where you may want to go next with your IT career. And that it indeed is one of the great benefits of IT is that you have a big say in what you do next. You have a huge say because you get to decide what technology interests you the most. And the more you focus on that technology and the more skilled you get in that technology, especially niches of that technology, the more valuable you will be to an organization. So make sure you check the job postings in your area. You look to see what jobs are available out there. You start to find out what things will really give you the best possible feedback and promotion to your career. You go with those. There should always be a strategy of what you're going to do next. We often get those questions in an interview. And those questions are all often asked, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I think that's too long. In IT, that's forever. That's so much happens in 10 years. I just want to know, what do you want to do next? That's the question you need to answer for yourself. What is the next thing that you want to do? And it needs to be reasonable. It needs to be attainable. It needs to be, you can't just say, I want to be the CEO of a technology company. Well, I guess you'd have to start it yourself. But for most of us, we want to know, what position do we want to do next? Do we want to be in networking? Do we want to be in security? Do we want cloud-based technologies? Do we want more of a DevOps role? Do we want databases? Do we want Windows? Do we like Linux? Pick one. Just pick one and go with it. And as long as you are dedicated to learning that technology, you find something that can qualify your knowledge, usually in the form of a certification, that is where you should go. Gather as many of these as possible. It will indeed help propel you through your career. And it's a great way to show a prospective employer that you show up with the skills that they're looking for, may be the difference between you getting that job and not getting that job. So hopefully that's giving you some things to think about. I know we've kind of hit the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We had some great questions in the first hour. Thank you for the questions you submitted in the second hour. We do these study groups every month. Make sure you check our calendar at professormesser.com/calendar so you'll know when the next live event is going to be. I think we're off next week, but we come back with our A+ the week after that. Then we do Network Plus and Security Plus in the following weeks. There's always something interesting going on. And if we're not here live, make sure you join us over on our Discord. You can always join there by going to professormesser.com/Discord. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks, everybody.